We want to show you an example of a full remote viewing session recorded live on camera under double-blind protocol with no monitoring. This is a session I did some time ago. The target was Maria Orsic, a woman with whom I was not familiar prior to the remote viewing. This was published on our private site, futureforecastinggroup.com, but we want to make it available to you now. We're beginning some new remote viewing training classes using the method, training the method that I use in my remote viewing. This was developed by U.S. Military Special Forces Intelligence. All human beings have an intuitive ability, a subconscious awareness that allows us to have access to a greater consciousness field so that we can obtain information across space and time, non-local information. This was developed by U.S. military in the 1970s and 80s, and we're teaching it now. We have 2 classes coming about that we're signing up, and we'll give you the information on that at the end of this video. For now, this is about a 30-minute session that I did live on camera, double blind. The target was Maria Orsic, a very interesting woman.
Okay, this is target T302-U2B5. So the target was Maria Orsic. She was channeling information for Germany during the years of 1919 to 1933, so around the World War II era. So Maria Orsic was born on 31 October 1895. That's a pretty interesting date there in Croatia. Her father was a Croatian architect, and her mother was a German ballerina from Vienna. Hitler came into power in 1933, and all the secret societies were disavowed and disbanded in Germany. So after that, her whereabouts were kind of unknown. They went underground. They kept on working on getting information. She was working to get free energy and anti-gravity. She wanted it to be a gift for humankind, but the people she was giving the information to wanted to use it for other means. So the Brill Society's signet nomenclature is said to have been one of the inspirations for the swastika later on. You can see that. And then these are the Brill ladies, different photographs. They all had incredibly long hair. They believed it was an antenna that helped them to conduct their psychic channeling. And these groups were said to have worked together to build the engine and craft described in the detailed designs channeled through Maria.
Let us begin. This is target T302-U2B5. We'll let the helicopter go by. We have to have a lot of ambient noise. Okay. Now let's start. This is target T302-U2B5. And I'm going to start with a couple of visual ideograms and then go to hopefully a little higher level data. So my first encounter with this target, T302-U2B5, is an outline of a human form. So I can see basically a head, a neck, and shoulders. And that's kind of a reverse image, like if that was black and the form was glowing white. So that's the first thing. I'll look again. T302-U2B5. Same thing with, I'm getting detail right here of something around the neck, a collar, and it seems kind of white and frilly. Maybe a starchy feel, but fine fabric. I couldn't see the face yet, but I was drawn to the neck and chin and mouth. And this would be like a Victorian era clothes, like the kind of clothes women used to wear I didn't see this, but it's coming to me right now, like a corset and a big dress, but tight fitting here, and then a neck, old style, like a century or more old style clothes. Now I want to know, that's so close up. I want to try to get a wider view of like where this is, and I can see land, hilly land here. These would be fields. There's a road, like a country road here, and these are fields and croplands. There's high mountains, but they're way over there in the distance. This is more rolling hills. This is cropland. And this sounds would be a horse going clip clop, a cart, a wheeled cart that kind of creaks along, the squeaky wheel of a cart, and a horse clopping. So people here have animals. It smells of animal manure. It smells of horse, of hay, of grasses. They grow things here. One of the things they grow would be potatoes over here. There is, I don't want to call it a city. It's bigger than a town. Its structures, it's like a very small city. It's not big skyscrapers. It's more smaller brick and stone buildings. And in the middle, this is some far, miles from the cropland. There's a big structure that's kind of the center of focus, that's made of heavy stones. It's made of blocks. It's got big things on either side, like I don't want to say monument, cathedral type of thing. This would be the centerpiece of this town. It's a town that's a little bigger than a town, but not a big city. There's sounds here of, okay, they have vehicles that are motorized, but they're not modern. They sound like an old car would go chugga 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 chugga, pop 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 pop, like Model T sounds, but a little later than that. The cars of the early 20th century, cars that have like two headlamps here and then a big fender and a big grill like this, and they're long, like 1920s Depression era cars that make a different, their engine sounds different than engines today. What about these people? There's a man that's standing here kind of on a balcony, and he's looking out over this building. And this man is interested in buildings. I don't know if he builds buildings, but he's involved with the bureaucracy of buildings, like the permits or the plans or something. Like he looks at a lot of buildings. And there's some illness. Okay, who else? The frilly neck thing. There's a woman, and she's seated. Her presence has a spiritual feel. Great power. I see a person with like swirling energy all around their head. Dancing ions. It's a weird thing. This is something you wouldn't see physically. Like if you were in the room with them physically in this 3D reality, you might not. But as a remote viewer, I can pick up this, it would be like a strong aura, but it moves and pulses and spins, and there is I don't want to say plasma, the word that came to me was more ions. So interesting people here that I'm going to look at. Specifically, this lady right here is like a beacon. Like that's somebody I want to get to know. Okay, so here we go. This lady is psychic as all get out. She's extremely powerful. Her hair is luxurious. She's pretty. She has blue eyes. She's fair. She's Caucasian. But when I probe her presence, this she does psychic stuff. She's, oh man, she is like, she is a power, a psychic power. And I'm thinking of Hitomi. Would they have me remote view Hitomi? She's like Hitomi in a way, but she's not Asian. She's like Lan Vo. Like if you remote viewed Lan Vo, she'd be Lan Vo. She reminds me of Mother Mary. So the vibe I get off her is Hitomi Akamatsu, Lan Vo, super psychic, Mother Mary, loving, positive energy, connection to this may be there's something about her head it's like an antenna, like a receiver. It's like she can tune into stuff. So she sits at this table and she's got papers and she's documenting things. She's transcribing stuff. She's transcribing it by way of her antenna. So this is like, she's a remote viewer, but they didn't call it remote viewing then. She's like channeling, but they didn't call it channeling. It's occult. She does this with other people. It's like a seance. but it's not a seance. It's remote. It's not remote viewing. It's not a seance. There's an occult thing to it. They have an emblem. There's I can sense it, but I can't see it. There's a design of an emblem that they have a group or a club or a society or something. Okay, it's not remote viewing, it's not channeling, it's occult, it's not meditating, it's like she's a medium. So she's talking to something on the other side. She's very good at it. She's really good at it sometimes, and sometimes she's not so good at it. But when she's on, she's really on. And something about her acts as an antenna, a field around her head. Now, there was a time when she witnessed glowing orbs. Not completely physical, like plasma. Again, dancing ions comes to my consciousness. Something, a profound experience where she had communication with some bright glowing orbs of energy, and I don't get so much of a physical structure to these, but all of a sudden, oh shit me, like a UFO. She's interested in UFOs. She wants to see UFOs. She wants to know how they work. And it has to do with some loop of the glowing orbs, and I don't know if she ever actually saw one, but she wanted to see one. She wanted to know how they work. She's like, this is weird because she's more on a spiritual plane, but she's worried about the nuts and bolts of ufology. There's a man involved. He's in the bed. He's very ill. He's like deathbed. She has a power, and she feels that her power, she ought to be able to use that to heal this guy. She wanted to do some kind of like healing energy. It was very important to her, and she really wanted to do it, but she wasn't able to do that. She considered it a failure. She considered it a defeat, that she had a channel open in one way, in one sense, to miraculous things, but she couldn't harness it in a way that she could heal people, particularly this one man, and it bothered her. But then she realizes that that wasn't her job, it wasn't right, that was his experience, that was his path, that was his fate, and she couldn't overcome fate with this power. So that's how she finally resolved that. She likes music. She has a soft voice. I need to I need to draw her, and I'm not a good enough artist. And so I'm going to try to invoke my artistic muse. Drawing a beautiful lady is not easy, but she's really pretty. So here we go. I'll give it my best. Man, everything about her is fine, beautiful. I'm seeing her more now in a high-necked black thing. She has a hard time washing her hair in winter. You know why? Because it's so long that it freezes. I think hair care, she has a lot of hair. She's beautiful. She speaks in a soft voice. She likes music. She a singer? She likes the Marlene Dietrich. She likes the music of Marlene Dietrich. She would listen to Marlene Dietrich in a gramophone, but the gramophone has scratchy, low fidelity sound. So she would like to hear that music more in a cabaret. She'd go to a cabaret in person, and it's the era of like The Sound of Music, Maria, from The Sound of Music, when Hitler took over the Austria. About that time, she worked with Heinrich. But she was afraid of Adolf. She was afraid of Adolf because she was into the occult. And she was afraid that she would be burned at the stake as a witch. Like, she's a witch, but she's a good witch in my mind. But she kind of was underground with some of this. It was looked down upon, like too mystical, too spooky. But she did work with somebody named Heinrich. She's afraid of Hitler. She went to cabarets. She could be very cold if she didn't like you, if you didn't know. She would only let certain people in. As a matter of fact, in the visuals that I was getting, I realized it was kind of blocked a little bit, and she would block you if she didn't trust you. She would she would be a very, very very interesting person to talk with if you could get to know her, and she would open up because of her amazing power. And the dancing ions were around her as part of her antenna. She has an antenna. I don't see her as an old lady. I only see her as young. Like, I can't picture her at all with gray hair. She looks like Marlene Dietrich, but she's prettier than Marlene Dietrich. she speaks German like Marlene Dietrich and some other Eastern European. I think she can speak 2 languages, but she has a soft voice, and she would be difficult to get to know. And she died. How she died. The word disguise, a brown hat, like a Homburg hat. They told her to cut her hair to make the getaway, but she wouldn't. She couldn't do it. It was her power. And so she put on a coat. This was a coat that she got in the rubble. There's bombs falling over there. The streets are empty. The streets are quiet except for gunfire, except for little bits of masonry falling of broken buildings. And she gets this hat that she pulls down over her eyes, and it's an old ragged hat and an old ragged coat. This coat is torn, and it may have been from somebody who died, like there could be blood on it, but she wanted to look like an old man, so she put her hair in a braid, in a ponytail, and she stuffed it down behind the coat, and she's walking on the street trying to pass off as an old man. There was a building that was blown up, and it burned a little bit, and she took some of the charcoal from the burned wood, and she put that on her face to disguise her face. She smeared it there, and she smeared it on her lips because she had full lips. And so she's walking down the street in this disguise, and it didn't work. I see these guys with those kind of cocked hats. They're holding guns, rifles. They have uniforms on. They're dirty. They smell awful. They're speaking a different language. Halt with a it's a different language way to say halt, and they've got those Russian kind of hats, so they're Russians. It's the Russian army, and she's on the street, and they're there with guns. There's at least 3 of them. I dropped this, and they're mean as hell. They have bloodlust. One of them's got a pistol. Halt. She's trying to slink away in the coat. She's got the hat over her head, and she's in this tattered coat, and they stop her. She was in a place where she was surrounded. They didn't know which way to go. They didn't know where the lines were. There was no, like, go east, go west, go south. There's bombs falling there. There's gunfire over there. They're closing in on us. I need to get away. The women, you don't want to be a woman with these guys coming. And they catch her. And now I can see an area down an alleyway, down a small lane, and they march her down there at gunpoint, and more come around and join, and there's a whole, at least 10 of them, and that was the end. That was very, it was like what happened to Hitomi. It was a bad end for her. She went too soon. She never made it. She never got to be old. And it was very horrific, but she died down there. They did what they did to her, and they executed her. And it was a tremendous loss for humanity, because this was a bright, shining light of a person with amazing powers. She may have been like the Nordic alien. She was Nordic. Was she a Nordic alien? She might have been. She might have had Nordic alien blood. She certainly had tremendous powers. She was extremely beautiful. This was the time of, you know, I gotta say that this has to do with Vril ladies. Like, she was one of them. And I don't know their story that well. But I think she was a channeler, a good witch, was a medium that could get information from glowing orbs of light about UFO technology, and she died before her time, a horrible death, because it was the war. It was the Russians. I would say the Russians got her. Is that a story that we know? I haven't looked this up. I'll go look this up. Did the Vril... How do you solve a problem like Maria? Maria the Vril. I don't like that scene. The Russian scene was not good. I like I don't want to leave it at the Russians. I would leave it at that, like beatific, luminous beauty, a very powerful soul, an amazing being, one of the most powerful and interesting beings I've ever remote viewed. That was like, that was a ride, man. That was. Yeah. We're beginning training classes soon using the same method that I used to remote view, developed by U.S. Army Special Forces Intelligence. For information about signing up, you can go to futureforecasters.com. Futureforecasters.com. We have two sites. We have a private site, which is futureforecastinggroup.com, and that's where we publish hundreds of videos like the one you just watched. The portal to the training is Future Forecasters. You can go check that out today. Hope you enjoyed that.